why Ultra Instinct actually limits Goku. Let me say something that might sound strange at first. Ultra Instinct is one of the strongest techniques Goku has ever used. No debate there. But strength and growth are not the same thing, and Dragon Ball has never treated them as the same thing either. When you actually slow down and look at the canon, the manga, the anime, the guide explanations, even the way Toriyama frames Goku's progression, you start noticing something uncomfortable. Ultra Instinct doesn't really push Goku forward in the way Dragon Ball usually pushes its characters forward. Instead, it keeps him locked in a very specific state, and once you notice that, the entire form starts to feel different. This isn't about calling Ultra Instinct weak, because that argument doesn't even make sense. Ultra Instinct is divine, it's rare, it's powerful enough to let Goku fight on the level of gods of destruction. So raw power is not the issue here. The real question is whether Ultra Instinct actually helps Goku evolve in the way Dragon Ball has always defined evolution. Because Dragon Ball has a very specific idea of what progress looks like, and it's not just get calmer and stronger. From the very beginning of Dragon Ball, Goku is never grown by mastering something quickly or cleanly. His biggest breakthroughs always come from failure first. He gets overwhelmed, he makes mistakes, he hits walls, and then he adapts. That cycle never changes. Super Saiyan didn't come from perfect control, it came from emotional collapse. Super Saiyan 2 wasn't calm growth, it was pressure finally snapping into focus. Even Super Saiyan 3, despite being inefficient, still followed the same rule. It was unstable, draining, and born out of desperation. Dragon Ball doesn't reward clean progress, it rewards painful progress. Ultra Instinct breaks that pattern. Canon is very clear about what Ultra Instinct actually is. It isn't a Saiyan transformation, and it isn't powered by emotion. It's an angelic technique. Whis explains it directly. The body moves on its own, without conscious thought. The mind becomes a weakness. Thinking creates delay. Emotion creates interference. In Ultra Instinct, the goal is to erase all of that. And that philosophy matters far more than the power boost itself. That's where the first real problem appears. Goku doesn't actually struggle to activate Ultra Instinct. What he struggles with over and over again is maintaining it. We see this during the Tournament of Power, and we continue seeing it afterward. His body gives out, his stamina collapses, and the state disappears the moment pressure shifts. That isn't random. Dragon Ball has always been very intentional with these signals. When a form truly belongs to a character, the instability fades over time. Ultra Instinct never fully stabilizes for Goku, and that alone tells us something important. When you compare Ultra Instinct to Goku's earlier transformations, the contrast becomes even clearer. Super Saiyan and its evolutions were emotionally driven. They were messy, volatile, and eventually integrated into who Goku was. Ultra Instinct works in the opposite direction. Emotion has to be suppressed, the mind has to go quiet. Control replaces expression. That difference is not accidental, and Dragon Ball keeps reminding us of it with how the form behaves. There's also a mental cost that people don't talk about enough. Dragon Ball has always treated the mind as part of growth. Goku doesn't just punch harder, he learns during fights. He observes opponents, tests ideas, fails, and then changes his approach. Ultra Instinct removes decision-making entirely. The body reacts before thought can exist. That sounds perfect, but reacting faster is not the same as adapting better. Ultra Instinct lets Goku dodge and counter at incredible speed, but it doesn't help him understand new mechanics or innovate mid-fight. And innovation has always been one of Goku's greatest strengths. If you look at how Dragon Ball handles new enemies with unfamiliar abilities, Goku's victories never come from instant dominance, they come after trial and error. Ultra Instinct skips that failure phase, and while that looks impressive, failure is where adaptation actually happens. Removing that process removes something fundamental from Goku's growth. The story itself keeps hinting that Ultra Instinct is temporary. It drains stamina, damages Goku's body, forces long recovery periods, and disappears under sustained pressure. Dragon Ball usually treats final evolutions differently. They stabilize, they settle. Ultra Instinct never fully does. and that places it firmly in the category of transitional states rather than destinations. There's also a philosophical mismatch that becomes impossible to ignore. Angels are neutral regulators. Their techniques are about balance and order. Saiyans, on the other hand, evolve through imbalance. They grow by pushing too far, by losing control, by surviving extremes. Ultra Instinct belongs to angelic thinking. Goku belongs to Saiyan evolution. That gap explains why the technique always feels slightly off when Goku uses it, no matter how powerful it looks. Even the way Goku talks about Ultra Instinct matters. He never describes it as who he is now. He talks about accessing it, entering it, losing it. Dragon Ball is very careful with language when it comes to growth, and Ultra Instinct is consistently framed as a state rather than an identity. That's not how the series treats true evolutionary steps. A lot of fans say Ultra Instinct feels different, even if they love it. That reaction makes sense. The form removes visible struggle. It removes internal conflict. It removes effort, and those are the things viewers emotionally connect to. Goku doesn't feel less powerful in Ultra Instinct. He feels more distant. So at this point, all we've really established is one thing. Ultra Instinct is incredibly powerful, but it doesn't follow Dragon Ball's traditional logic of growth. That doesn't mean it's bad. It means it's incomplete. And that's where things get interesting, because once you start looking at Saiyan psychology itself, the clash becomes impossible to ignore. If Ultra Instinct really were Goku's final answer, he wouldn't struggle this much to stay inside it, and Dragon Ball has never made its final answers this unstable. That's not an accident.
How Ultra Instinct conflicts with Saiyan psychology. To really understand why Ultra Instinct feels wrong as a long-term path for Goku, we have to stop thinking about forms for a moment and start thinking about Saiyans themselves. Not power levels, not techniques, not colors, mindset. Because Dragon Ball has always been very clear about one thing. Saiyans do not evolve the same way gods do. They never have. Their growth is violent, emotional, and reactive. It's built around pressure, not peace, and Goku is the purest example of that. Saiyans don't get stronger when things are under control. They get stronger when control is slipping away. Every major Saiyan breakthrough comes when the situation becomes unbearable, when survival is uncertain, when emotions spike instead of settling down. This isn't just Goku. It applies to Vegeta, Gohan, even future versions of Saiyans we've seen. Dragon Ball treats emotional overload as a catalyst, not a weakness. Ultra Instinct, on the other hand, treats emotion as noise that needs to be erased. That's where the conflict begins. Ultra Instinct requires stillness. It demands mental silence. The more thought, the worse it performs. Whis explains this very clearly. Thinking creates delay. Emotion disrupts movement. The body must act without interference. That philosophy makes perfect sense for angels, because angels are not meant to grow. They are meant to maintain balance, but Saiyans are built to grow through imbalance. Asking Goku to fight like an angel is asking him to fight against his own evolutionary wiring. When you watch Goku fight normally, you can see how much of his strength comes from engagement. He talks mid-fight, he experiments, he laughs, he reacts emotionally to new techniques. His mind is always active. Ultra Instinct shuts all of that down. It doesn't amplify Goku's instincts, it replaces them. And that replacement is why the form never fully settles into it. This is also why Ultra Instinct always comes with a psychological barrier. Goku can't just decide to use it. He has to fall into it, lose himself, let go. That sounds deep, but it's actually limiting. Every other form Goku mastered became accessible through will. Ultra Instinct remains conditional, and Dragon Ball is very consistent here. When a form truly belongs to a character, access becomes reliable. Ultra Instinct never reaches that point. Another important thing to notice is how Ultra Instinct changes the way fights feel. Goku stops creating momentum. He stops forcing situations. Instead, he waits, he responds, he lets opponents move first. That's efficient, but Dragon Ball has never been about efficiency. Goku's most decisive moments come when he takes initiative, not when he reacts perfectly. Reaction wins exchanges. Initiative wins battles. This is where Saiyan psychology really clashes with Ultra Instinct. Saiyans don't just survive fights, they learn from pain. Damage matters to them. pressure reshapes them. Ultra Instinct minimizes damage and reduces risk, which sounds good on the surface, but it removes the very stress that triggers Saiyan adaptation. In other words, Ultra Instinct protects Goku from the thing that usually makes him stronger. That's why the form feels like it has a ceiling, not a power ceiling, but a growth ceiling. Ultra Instinct is already a finished technique. It doesn't evolve by becoming more emotional or more chaotic. It evolves by becoming calmer, cleaner, and more controlled. That direction is the exact opposite of how Saiyan growth usually works. So even when Ultra Instinct improves, it improves in a way that pulls Goku further away from his natural path. This contrast becomes even clearer when you look at how Dragon Ball treats Vegeta during the same period. Vegeta explicitly rejects Ultra Instinct, not because he can't learn it, but because it doesn't align with who he is. He chooses a path that feeds off battle intensity instead of suppressing it. Canon makes this philosophical divide very obvious. One Saiyan leans toward angelic calm, the other leans into Saiyan brutality. That isn't random. It's the story exploring two different evolutionary ideas. And here's something subtle but important. Ultra Instinct doesn't make Goku feel dangerous in the way older forms did. It makes him impressive. There's a difference. Enemies respect Ultra Instinct. They don't fear it the way they fear unpredictability. Dragon Ball villains are always undone by chaos, by something they couldn't plan for. Ultra Instinct is predictable once understood. Calm can be studied. Patterns can be learned. Chaos can't. This is why Ultra Instinct constantly feels like a temporary answer rather than a final one. The story keeps positioning it as something Goku uses in extreme situations, not something he builds his entire future around. It's a state he enters, not a self he becomes, and Dragon Ball is very deliberate about that distinction. So by the end of this part, the picture becomes clearer. Ultra Instinct isn't holding Goku back because it's weak, it's holding him back because it asks him to fight in a way that contradicts how Saiyans naturally evolve. It suppresses the emotional friction that has always driven Goku forward, and that creates a quiet limit, not on his strength, but on his growth. And now that raises a much bigger question. If Ultra Instinct doesn't truly align with Saiyan evolution, then why does the story keep pushing Goku towards it? Who actually benefits from Goku becoming calmer, more controlled, and less unpredictable? Because once you start looking at angels, gods, and the structure of Dragon Ball's universe, the answer becomes a lot darker.
Wii U Ultra Instinct, who it really serves, and why it was never meant to be the end. By the time you reach this point, one thing should be clear. Ultra Instinct isn't failing because it's weak, and it isn't unstable because Goku hasn't trained enough. It feels unstable because it was never designed around Goku's nature in the first place. And once you accept that, the real question changes. Instead of asking why Goku struggles with Ultra Instinct, you start asking who this technique actually works best for. Ultra Instinct does not come from Saiyan culture, Saiyan biology, or Saiyan evolution. It comes from angels. That matters more than most fans realize. Angels are not warriors chasing growth. They are overseers. Their role in Dragon Ball is not to surpass limits, but to preserve balance. They don't interfere unless order is threatened, and when they do act, they act with precision rather than passion. Ultra Instinct fits perfectly into that mindset. It removes emotional volatility. It removes reckless decision-making. It turns combat into something clean and regulated. From an angel's perspective, that is ideal. From a Saiyan's perspective, it is restrictive. When Goku uses Ultra Instinct, something subtle happens to his role in the story. He stops being a disruptor and starts becoming a stabilizer. Old Goku challenged systems, he broke expectations, he forced change simply by existing. Ultra Instinct Goku responds to threats instead of creating momentum. He waits, observes, and reacts. That doesn't make him weaker, but it does make him predictable, and predictability has never been where Goku shines. This is also why Beerus remains such an important figure in this conversation. No matter how much Goku improves Ultra Instinct, Beerus is always positioned just out of reach, not because Goku lacks effort, but because the story does not want him crossing that boundary yet. Beerus represents destruction driven by instinct, emotion, and impulse. Ultra Instinct brings Goku close to that level, but never beyond it. It keeps him contained within a controlled framework, and the more refined Ultra Instinct becomes, the tighter that framework feels.
Another thing that becomes impossible to ignore is how Ultra Instinct changes the emotional texture of fights. Earlier forms amplified tension. You could feel the strain. You could feel the risk. Ultra Instinct smooths everything out. The danger feels distant. Even when Goku is losing stamina, the struggle feels technical rather than emotional. That distance changes how viewers connect to the fight, because Dragon Ball has always been strongest when the audience feels the weight of Goku's choices, not just the elegance of his movement. This is where a lot of fans push back and say Ultra Instinct is still evolving, that Goku will eventually make it his own. And that's a fair point, but Canon shows us something important about how Ultra Instinct evolves. Every improvement pushes it further toward control, not expression. It becomes cleaner, calmer, more refined. It does not become more chaotic or more emotional. The direction of growth matters, because Dragon Ball has always treated direction as destiny. Ultra Instinct doesn't limit Goku's power, it limits how that power is expressed. It narrows the range of who Goku is allowed to be in a fight, and for a character whose greatest strength has always been adaptability through emotion, that narrowing is significant. Goku has never won because he was flawless, he has won because he was flexible. Ultra Instinct reduces flexibility in exchange for perfection, and perfection has never been Dragon Ball's end goal. When you imagine the future of Dragon Ball through this lens, Ultra Instinct starts to feel less like a final form and more like a lesson, a phase Goku has to experience so he can understand its limits. Because the moment Goku faces an opponent who understands Ultra Instinct's mechanics, its stamina cost, and its reliance on calm, the technique becomes vulnerable. Calm can be disrupted, patterns can be learned, and once that happens, Ultra Instinct alone is no longer enough. At that point, Goku has to fall back on what always made him dangerous: his creativity, his emotional intelligence, his willingness to take risks, his ability to evolve mid-fight rather than simply react. Those traits don't disappear, but Ultra Instinct suppresses them instead of amplifying them. That suppression is the real limitation, and it's why the form never feels like home for him. So when you step back and look at the full picture, Ultra Instinct starts to make sense as part of Goku's journey, not the end of it. It teaches him control by showing him what control costs. It shows him balance so he can understand why imbalance has always fueled his growth. Dragon Ball doesn't introduce ideas randomly. It introduces them to be challenged, surpassed, or transformed. Ultra Instinct is incredible, but it isn't freedom, and Goku has never been at his best when he is calm and contained. He is at his best when he is alive in the fight, thinking, adapting, and pushing himself beyond what he was supposed to be. That's why Ultra Instinct feels limiting, not because it holds Goku back in strength, but because it asks him to become something he has never been meant to stay as. And here's where I'll leave it. If you think Ultra Instinct is Goku's final destination, then the real question is simple. Why does Dragon Ball keep showing it as something fragile, temporary, and difficult for him to maintain? Final paths in this series don't behave like that. They stabilize, they settle, they become part of who the character is. But if you think Ultra Instinct is only a stepping stone, then the question flips. What kind of power comes after a form that removes emotion, suppresses instinct, and prioritizes control? Because Dragon Ball has never ended on control. It has always ended on evolution. I'm not saying Ultra Instinct is wrong. I'm saying it isn't complete. And whether you agree or disagree, the canon itself gives you enough evidence to argue both sides honestly. So if you think I missed something, point it out. If you think Ultra Instinct still fits Goku perfectly, explain why. And if you think Goku eventually has to move beyond it, tell me what that looks like. Just don't sit on the fence. Dragon Ball never does.